Zoning Commission for the Village of Vernon Hills, and we would need to start with a roll call.
Chairman Morris.
Here.
Mr. Baloo, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner, Mr. Heidner.
Here.
Mr. Mulcrone.
Here.
Mr. Gorog.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. First thing on this evening's agenda is the plat of consolidation in Riviera Estates, case 13-05, filed by Doug and Kim, and I will probably mispronounce it, so I apologize in advance, Eckroat. So who's going to speak for the petitioner on this one?
Good evening. My name is Steve Munson, Munson Architects. I'm working with Doug and Kim Eckroat on the new house and the property development that they're doing. Unfortunately, they were out of town on business today, so I'll be representing them.
Okay. Okay. The only real rule we have is if you decide to walk away from the microphone in front of you, there should be a handheld one that
Yep.
you need to use.
Okay,
Okay, so
good.
tell us what you'd like us to know.
Okay, this is basically a consolidation of three properties in Riviera Estates, lots 21, 22, and 23 into a single parcel to allow enough space to build the home that they're looking for. The house is basically sized to conform with the zoning requirements for two of the lots. The third lot is there to preserve open space and allow them to shift the house a little bit away from the neighbors so that there's more space between the houses. That's all. But the house does fit on two of the lots and conforms with the floor area setbacks and all of that.
How big is the consolidated lot?
69,003 square feet.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
69,003 square feet.
So what's the FAR then?
The allowable?
No, proposed.
Oh.
The as-built proposed.
11,600,
Okay.
plus or minus.
The only question which I asked Mr. Kalmar, I'll ask you the same question. I appreciate that the size house, based on what you described, fits appropriately on this size lot, but is it disproportionate to the rest of the lots in this area, in this subdivision?
Is the lot disproportionate or is the house?
The lot.
I guess I don't know how to answer that. I don't know if any other lots have been consolidated or what the largest lot is out there. I guess I don't know the answer to that. I would say no.
Well, you'd say you don't know, actually.
You're right.
Is that a sports court, which would be on the, I guess it'd be the eastern portion of your drawing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There's no home built to the east, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. If you actually would have drawn it in for us, where would that home have been if it was appropriately situated on that lot vis-a-vis this sports court? I'm not asking you to draw, I'm asking you to show us. No, remember, you have to use the microphone. Right.
Turn it on.
No.
Okay. A home on this third lot would be somewhere right here in the center.
Okay. What about the lot to the east?
This lot in the
No.
center?
No, that's west.
This lot.
No. Isn't that east?
Yes.
Keep going.
Oh, this lot?
Yes.
Um,
Where would it be?
okay, that would be right in here.
So what's your best estimate in terms of distance from the sports court to the lot? Or, I'm sorry, not to the lot, I misspoke, to the other home when it gets built.
Well, the side yard setback on this property is 10 feet.
Okay.
So we have roughly 20 here, plus the 10 if they were all the way up against the side, 30 feet.
Okay.
Does the Will the sport court have a fence or some kind of screen?
It will have some kind of screening. The use of the sport court isn't quite defined yet. The plan was not to have full fence all around it, but to use landscaping and the slope and boulders to kind of separate it and create some of the protection that you need. But it will have some fencing.
How far is it from the home you propose to build?
To the sport court,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would say, I don't have an exact number here.
Sure.
This is 25, 60 to 70 feet from this corner to the corner of the sport court.
Okay.
There's nothing on the east lot. Is there anything on the other side of you currently?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there is currently a home there.
Okay. Anybody else?
And did you have any, I think one of the recommendations was that this site be made so it, once consolidated, it could not be deconstructed
That,
into separate lots.
right, that terminology is on the text page of the plat. And it will probably be part of the discussion we have with the village board next week or whenever the village board meeting is, but it is currently on that sheet.
Well, let me understand what you mean by part of the discussion. Are you asking us to approve something that then you're going to go to the village board and say, but we don't really like that approval, we want something else?
No, not necessarily. It was my understanding that if we had an opportunity to talk about that, it would be with the village board. But the owners have accepted these drawings to be submitted as they are, with that terminology on there. It's clear that it might be approved just as it's written.
Are you asking us to approve it with or without that restriction?
Just the way it's been submitted,
So with the restriction?
right?
Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Does the sports court have any type of lighting?
It will, that will be part of the definition of the sports court. That hasn't actually all been fully thought through.
John, do they have to come back for approval? The reason I'm asking is, if they're 30 feet away from the neighboring house, and it's going to be a tennis court, and they're going to have lights in, they're okay, you've got that.
Yeah.
That answers
Let me
that.
check my book for a minute.
Okay. I'm just wondering about, the lighting and the,
I don't believe our village, the tennis courts within the village have lighting at the high schools.
well, this is,
I know, I'm just saying.
and I use the word tennis court, but if we're referring to this as a sports court, I guess I would just wonder what type of lighting would the owners be expecting, if any? Because there's nothing mentioned about lighting, but then again, is that within the scope of what we're reviewing here?
It's just a re-subdivision for our purposes at this point.
All right,
But,
okay, I get it.
but, no, I think you raise a valid point that if we're re-subdividing, but in doing so, we're recognizing an issue that it's creating, I think we can bring it up.
Well, it's creating an issue for an empty lot, and under the assumption that this will be fully constructed before, is the lot 24 sold?
I don't know that.
I mean, John, I would be curious if lot 24 were sold,
Yeah.
but if it's not, then it's the new buyer's, if the establishment is built, it's for them to decide if they want to build there.
Right.
While they're looking that up, do all three lots back onto Lake Charles?
No. 2 of the lots are lake lots. The third one is a golf course lot.
Is that the one furthest to the east?
Yes.
The main house, it's behind the 50-foot building setback line,
Yes, it is.
but the sport court is proud of that, as
Right.
well as the pool and
Right,
the garden areas,
right.
the terraces.
And all of that has been reviewed with zoning already. Everything that we show is compliant with all of their regulations.
Anybody else?
No, I kind of would like an answer, though, but
Of course.
You'll wait for your answer? I don't see anything in the zoning ordinance that specifically addresses that, although that's just a quick overview. I mean, we did have an issue in another area where we had an outdoor batting cage and some trampolines and those types of things that we've created. We created some regulation within the ordinance to deal specifically with that. So I will look at that in furtherance of that question. The other part of this is whether there is in fact some covenant or restriction that's established within the development itself that may prohibit that type of outdoor lighting. So that may very well be something that the homeowner has to petition the Greg's Landing North HOA for approval. So I will, they're on notice now through the architect, and I will check what the zoning ordinance says specifically with regards to the lighting. My initial look-see is I did not see something that regulated it.
Okay, anybody else? Right, Danny, would you like to add anything?
That's all I have.
Okay, what we have on, this is a development review, right? What we have in this commission is a standing motion to recommend approval.
Mhm.
So our motion would be a motion to recommend preliminary and final approval of Dillon's Estates plat of consolidation of lots 21, 22, and 23 in Riviera Estates, subject to the following conditions. Review and approval of the final plat by the village engineer. 2, placement of a restriction on the proposed plat which prohibits any re-subdivision of the property, the language to be reviewed and approved by the village attorney. And 3, compliance with all standards and ordinances of the village except as otherwise provided. And so you're on notice, and also whatever would be applicable through the HOA.
Yeah.
So we'll just add that. And as applicable,
They've been there through the
Right.
review of the house, so they know who these people
Right,
are,
sure.
so.
Right.
Yep.
okay, we need a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call vote.
I'm sorry, did?
Jim.
Jim, okay, sorry.
Do we need a roll call?
Okay. Mr. Gorog,
no.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Chairman Morse.
Yes.
Okay. The motion carried 3-1. This is going to be forwarded on to the village board at the meeting next Tuesday.
Okay,
So you'll need to be there.
very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Okay, next on this evening's agenda is a public hearing. It is case 1302. It's a petition filed by Kurt and Scott Hesner, representing the Vernon Hills Park District, seeking a change in zoning classification for a portion of property from COS1 Conservation Open Space to PIB Public and Institutional Buildings, approval of a special use permit to allow a public maintenance facility with certain variances. 3, preliminary and final site and landscaping plan approvals. And 4, preliminary and final approval of the architectural elevations and signage plans. And who's going to speak for the petitioner this evening?
I'm Kurt Hesner, and I'm here from Hesner. I also would like to introduce with me, I have Mike Mormon, who is the Superintendent of Parks for the Vernon Hills Park District. I also have Joe Brousseau, who is our landscape architect, and he will be also testifying, as well as Earl Walton from the Hesner Corporation.
Okay, so anyone who's going to testify, I would ask if you can come up to the podium to begin. And if you raise your right hand, we ask you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth. All right, as we said before, the main rule is you need to speak from a microphone, either handheld or fixed. Before you do that, we will note that as part of Hesner Corporation is Scott Hesner, who's also a member of this commission, and he's not taking part in this deliberation, nor has he taken part in this deliberation prior to this?
Correct.
Okay, so you are on.
Okay. What we're going to lead you through is the planning process that we have gone through to develop the new parks maintenance facility for the Vernon Hills Park District. We have a slide presentation basically set up here for you, and we'll go through this. Why don't you go to the first slide, Earl? Okay. This shows the location of the site that is proposed for the new parks facility. The colored portion of it, or the non-green portion area, is actually the area that will be developed. The green areas will be left open and will serve as future growth for the facility if it so needed it. We show you on this slide too, because the question will come up, well, how far away are we from certain things? And the maintenance facility is a gray part of the building in the middle of the site itself, and it shows a 125-foot dimension to the first condo building there, and that is the Century Park condominiums. And then from the corner of the lot, which is the southwest corner, you can see 190 to the first condo building and 310 feet to the first property line of the first residence. Then on the north side of it, we are showing you Greg's Landing, and that's actually the golf course that backs up to it, as well as the maintenance facility and the old Mundelein, I think, maintenance treatment or facility. Basically, those dimensions from the corner lot of the closest point is 480 and 540 to the closest house over in Greg's Landing North. From the way the site is situated, it's on an angle. It's in a parcel that the village acquired when they went through the development of Greg's Landing. That particular parcel that we're showing you is that we're carving out for the agreement that will be a lease back, from the village to the Park District, will be roughly 701 feet by 120 feet deep. And it consists of the building in the middle, which is the maintenance facility, the parking, which will be to the east, and the yard, or the material yard, which will be to the west. All the property to the north of it is the railroad right-of-way. The property directly to the southwest of it is undeveloped, and that's COS 1 zoning. All the property to the east is also COS zoning 1. And then I think is it R7, John? I can't remember. R7 down to the condominiums below. And then you see the ball fields and the pavilion down in the corner itself. Go ahead, Earl. This is a layout of the plan where you can see where the lot itself is, how it's functioning, and how the utilities are being brought in. The water is being brought in from the Indianwood Road, and actually it's on the south side of the road. We'll be going underneath the road, bringing it in, because the building will have to have its domestic water as well, so it will have to be sprinkled. So that's an 8-inch and a 6-inch water service as it steps down. We'll also have our sanitary that'll be coming from the park itself, tying into that system. And why don't you go to the next slide, because that's going to show, this is kind of the erosion plan or the restoration plan, but you can see kind of the way the grading's going. Earl, on the yard side, go to the yard side. All of it goes from the northeast to the southwest, and as you can see the loops there, the water transfers on a sheet basis down into those loops into the bioswale, and the bioswale goes back down over to the CV ditch. The stormwater coming off the top of the building itself will be coming across the back in a drain, a French perforated type drain. It'll go into the rain garden, which is the furthest east portion of the lot, and then it will be filtered with best management practices and into the bioswale to the CV ditch. The parking lot, again, will be a straight runoff to the east, again, to the rain garden, which it will then at that point be filtered and goes into the bioswale and into the CV ditch. The other areas, the green areas that are out in the front, are the areas that will have to be restored of the existing Indianwood Drive, as well as the paths that go into the park itself. Okay, Earl, go to the next one. This is kind of blown up a little bit better. You can see better where the building is, the gray portion in the middle. This kind of shows you the parking in the pavilion that exists down to the right-hand corner. The parking that is right at the end of the dead end of Indianwood Drive is existing, and that's what they use for the park right now. The parking in this facility will be made available for overflow for events that are down there when they're not in and operational, which I think they're mostly, Mike, they work from pretty much 7 till about 3:30. So after those times, that lot will be open and available to the public. And again, the green areas around it are the undeveloped portions of the property. Go ahead. All right, I'm going to bring up Joe Brousseau, who's the landscape architect for this particular project, and I'm going to let him kind of explain the planning material and what we're doing in front of the building on the south side.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Brousseau with Brousseau Design Group. We're landscape architects and planners. And this is our landscape plan that you're seeing. And as Kurt mentioned, we have some interesting, it's an interesting site. It's a linear site. And we have that ditch that runs in front of the building or south of the building. And what we've tried to do is create some depth in our landscape. And you'll see that our landscape bed, starting from the west, is a serpentine type bed that just keeps kind of curving and going away from the building and coming back toward the building. And what we're trying to do there is create some depth, and you'll see later in my presentation some of our perspective drawings that really show what is going to happen there. But starting from the left, from the west side, the first 4 large trees that you see there are going to be evergreen trees. What we're trying to do is create a buffer, visual buffer between the residences to the south and southwest and the maintenance yard. And as we start going east or heading east, we have a lot of different shrub and perennial massing. One of my next slides will show you that. And then there's 6 large trees, shade trees, that we're going to install across the front of the building. They're all going to go in at 6-inch calipers, so we have some immediate size to our landscape. We're trying to soften that building, and not only soften the building, but help the building with regard to the heat, the summer heat, and again, provide some scale to the landscape immediately so that building comes down in scale.
Can you point to those on your plan,
Sure. Do we have?
Earl?
Yeah, you want, Earl, would you give them the six larger circles that you see there? And again, they're real informal. They're not, some are close to the building, some are further away. You'll see down at the bottom, we have a little bubble there, and that's showing a wall. What we're trying to do is, because the grade slopes off into the ditch, we're creating some retaining walls, and there's going to be 5 locations where we have these retaining walls. And again, it's going to help us create that depth in our landscape. It's going to be attractive. It's a precast block product, precast concrete product, but you don't even know it until you get right up on it. You have to really get right up to it to see it. It's a very nice product that we're using. It's going to complement the architecture of the building, and again, bring some of that building into the landscape. And again, as you continue to head east, now in front of the building, we have some smaller circles. And Earl, if you could show those, just kind of point to those. Those are understory trees, so those are going to be a little bit shorter. They're going to be about 15 to 18 feet high. What we did there is we wanted to keep that. You'll see on the building facade, there's a large window, a linear window. We're trying to keep some of that natural light coming into the building, which will help in the garage portion of the building. And again, as we continue east, we have a variety of different shrubs and perennials massed in that area, different heights, different textures, different colors, different attributes for different times of the year. Our goal is to have color at this site throughout the year. Throughout the summer months, I should say, there's going to be interesting fall color, spring flowering, and flowering throughout the year. So that's our concept. Earl, if you can go to the next slide. This starts to show some of our plants in our plant palette, and you can see we're using a variety of different materials with different colors, different attributes. You'll see some plants that have red twigs for winter characteristics. So we're planning for all 4 seasons here, although the winter season in Chicago, as you know, is tough to do, but we're trying to do that with some different plants. So that gives you an idea of our plant palette. Want to go next, Earl, please? Okay.
All right, now we're going into the building itself. Basically, in the bottom corner, the green area, that's where the office area is going to be. They have office space, private toilets, and then a lounge training area where it'll have multi-functions involved with it, where they'll actually do some of their training in there. They'll also log out of their computers along the south wall, and we'll also have all their kitchen appliances and those kind of things for eating lunch and getting ice out for the field and those kind of things. The yellow area is the locker rooms that are set up for the men's and women's. We also have the sprinkler room that is right below that because that's directly right across the street where that water service is going to come in. Going to the go to the north, Earl. This is really the garage area itself, which will consist of an open space. The building itself is about 12,889 square feet. It is going to be 24 feet tall, so that particular area is going to be a two-story space. A lot of the equipment that you see along the north wall are the cages and the storage facilities, because this is a maintenance facility, and they do maintain their equipment on the inside as well as park it and clean it and wash it and those kind of things. So you have the lift over to the left-hand side. You also have the rinsate bay. They deal with a lot of chemicals. That system is a separated system from the rest of the stormwater systems where they can capture it and then pump it out later and do the responsible thing with those particular products. And then you also have your oil, lube, and area room in there. And that, again, feeds all their systems and their trucks and their supply systems to maintain their equipment. And that's really kind of it from the inside of the building itself. It's a rather simple building. It's a big building. It's a tall building, but there's a lot of things that go on with the lifts and those kind of things. This is a picture of the pavilion. And the pavilion was the building that has already been built down in the southeast corner, right across the parking lot from the entrance, almost on a diagonal. And this particular building, the Park District enjoys quite a bit. They like it. They like the appearance of that building. And they wanted somehow to have that kind of design integrated into the overall type of maintenance facility. Now, this is more of a warming house and a public space to gather, where the maintenance facility is not really that type of space. It's more for maintaining equipment and taking care of the parks. So what we did is we tried to marry the attributes of these, which were the stone in the columns and the hardy board that was on the side, basically with the green color. We tried to associate that back into the new maintenance facility by color, and the browns and the asphalt shingle roof and those kind of things. And when we show you, we flip to the facility, you'll kind of see what we did with that. This is the proposed elevations of the facility that shows up on the south elevation the office pavilion over to the right, which is, again, glass storefront system with the thin set stone and the hip roof that would be basically tied into the precast building itself. It does give an indication of that is where you would go to ask a question. That is where you will go when you are a vendor and you want to meet somebody in the parks, park maintenance facility itself. The rest of the building behind is a precast structure. We selected a precast for this particular building for two major reasons. One of them was the durability of the product over long term, for a very kind of intensive use. And the other reason was for the efficiencies that we would gain. This particular facility has a very, very tight budget. And we've been working very, very hard to stay on budget. And so those two things made it the right selection. How we handled the colors, we brought the same similar colors in to the facility itself that were on the pavilion by color. We did the banding and the precast systems, and we did the anodized bronze storefront systems along in the pavilion as well as for the windows up top. And then, as you can see, on the east elevation, we carried it around towards the east parking lot itself. You see the opening where the garage is. That garage door is a 24-foot by 14-foot door. It is a very, very big door. That garage has the ability to pull a semi through if it has to. And it's, again, done by a loop. The west elevation is again where the yard is, where you'll have the material bins, and then you'll have again the garage door and the access to the rinsate bay and the lube area. And then the north elevation, which backs up to the railroad tracks, is very utilitarian, precast with a lot of our exhaust systems and those kind of things. The elevational difference between the top of the railroad and the finished floor of this building is roughly 12 feet. So you can see that it'll be much lower, and only probably the top 10 feet would be visible over the top of the railroad yard, and that would be on a direct view. Then, with Joe's, design, and I'm going to bring him up here again so we can kind of go through these renderings. What we did is we applied the planting materials to the front of the rendering, so you kind of get an idea of when it matures after about, what do you want to say, 2 or 3 years, 3 years? Because we're going to be buying bigger material. 3 to 5 years, this is what you're going to see. This particular view is from the southwest, and this is looking at where the yard will be on that side.
Thank you. There, as Kurt indicated, that's our yard space there. Those are our fir, they're concolor firs. You can start to see the shrub massing that we have in there. And then as you proceed a little bit further east in this view, you start to see that wall kind of peeking out of the ground there. Earl, if you can highlight that right there. So that's that wall, and then we have 5 locations throughout the site that we have that wall. The large trees against the building, and then those are further down, and then the lower canopy trees are also against the building. And now we're proceeding a little east here. Again, you can see a close-up of the wall. And all the plant materials we're going to be using are all massed. So we have 11s and 15s of each plant there. So we really have some impact with the landscape that we have. And again, you can see the larger trees against the building and how they really soften the building. Here's a straight-on view. You'll see the lower story trees right there. Thank you. And then the larger trees, breaking up that expanse of the building there, and all of the ground plane plantings that we have there, and those low walls. And now we're on the east side with the parking lot. We've got some plantings in front of the parking lot. We're providing enough room for snow pushing so that we have place to store snow, so we're not putting those plants right up against the back of the pavement. There's some low plantings. There's a wall on this side of the driveway. If Earl can point to that one, there you go. There you go. And that next slide is actually a little bit better. So you can see the wall, we have the walls, and then you can see looking kind of north and west toward the office portion of the building, you'll see the different massing of plant materials that we have there. And again, this is more toward the entrance of the building, a little bit closer up shot. And our east side of the building, east facade. And northeast, and then the north facade.
Yeah, the one thing that's deceptive about that is where he's pointing right now is that is totally covered with trees. And it's a very natural environment behind there. It's pretty much solid trees. The lot was all trees, and it was cleared totally.
But the dip in there that's the railroad in that
Yeah,
elevator.
the dip goes up, and the
Right.
plateau is the railroad.
And then on the back side of the building too, there's also vegetation, right? Between that and
yeah,
the
it goes right up
railroad.
to the property line of
Got it.
the minus 10 feet, because we're off the 10 feet of the rear of the property itself. And again, the areas that they're not going to use right away are going to be all native grasses and native species that they're going to put back in and restore the lot. The area in the bioswale will also have native species that'll be placed into that for the best management practices. Earl, I want you to go back to one thing, because I did skip one thing. Go back to a site plan for me. I didn't talk about the circulation of this lot, which I think is an important thing. Essentially, your main entrance, go to the other one, Earl, go to the one to the east. Thank you. That's the main entrance to the facility. That'll be the public side where people come in, and they can go in and park in that particular area, and then basically come back out and go back down Iron or Indianwood Lane. And the other entrance here is the yard entrance. That's 30 foot wide because it has a little bit bigger trucks going in. And basically that's for deliveries and bringing their equipment in and out. That would be most the private side there. But we do have the loop that goes through the building all the way around so that they do not have to back up into the street. They can totally go through the building, come all the way through, so there's no backing up by trucks. All right, let's go back.
Kurt, what's the height of the building?
Building is 24 feet tall.
And is that to the top of the parapet wall?
That is the top of the parapet wall. There are no mechanical units on the roof itself. They are hung from the inside of the ceiling, and the two condensers are behind the landscaping along the south side of the building, and they are approximately, I think, 30 inches round.
Can you or Mike talk a little bit about the operations
Sure.
and
Michael, why don't you come on up?
what takes place there and what kind of vehicles you run, hours of operation, that type of thing?
Absolutely. I'm Mike Mormon, Superintendent of Parks for the Vernon Hills Park District. What we're doing is mirroring the operation that we have over at the 7 East Phillips. Our crews operate from 7 to 3:30. We operate approximately 7 pickup trucks, no large vehicles like the village has. Like Mr. Hesner was saying, we'll be operating, coming in basically clockwise through the building. Our weekend crews and staffing, we're very skeletal crews. We have 7 full-time staff members and then 2 supervisors, myself and my assistant. Maintaining of the outside of the building, we have an onboard horticulturist, and she's very excited about having all these really nice plants in front of the building. We have explained to the Hesner Group that, we definitely have considerations for irrigation in the front of the building to, maintain the trees. So we're a little excited about the building. Is there any specific questions?
We're looking at the yard, which is the west. We're looking at the yard, which is the west portion of this site.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now go back to where we were. Okay, there's the 1, 2, 3. There's 4, and I don't know whether this is 4. There's 40 or whatever. There's these various precast. You've created these bins for storage.
That's correct.
Okay. First up, what are you storing there? Number one.
One will be wood chips, which we're all
Okay.
using our tree rings. One would be montmorillonite clay or turfus for our ball diamonds, gravel, and pulverized topsoil.
Okay.
And we'll probably have 1 bin dedicated for our dumpsters.
Okay, fair enough. If your operation begins at 7, okay,
Sure.
the pickup trucks that you say that the Park District operates, are they operated with backup alarms?
No. We have 1 vehicle that has a backup alarm, and that'll be a skid steer loader, and that's the only one that has a backup alarm.
So, okay, so the pickup trucks don't, but the loader does.
Right.
My question then is, with this being, when we looked at the distances you drew, this is the closest point, so to speak, to the condominium townhomes that sit to the south. I want to know, what kind of impact are we looking at of backup alarms at 7 in the morning to people that live next door that might not want to get up till 7:30 or 8?
The impact would be minimum. Our crews come in and they leave. And like I said, there's be no backing up the vehicles. And if there's a backup alarm in any vehicle, I disconnect it because I don't like them personally. But,
I didn't hear that because I'm not quite sure that's
oh,
legal, but go
that's
ahead.
irrelevant. But anyways, we start at 7 in the morning. The crews go out. They go out to about 9 o'clock. They visit the parks. They do the cleanups. And then they come back to the shop and get their job assignments.
The intent is that all the equipment is going to be stored inside. So what happens is they will actually bring them in a double row all the way in, and they get themselves set up for the next day. So when they come in first thing at 7 o'clock, they just go.
See, that's really my concern, is that not that they're stored inside, but they then are, loading, or you're doing loading operations
That would
in
be
the
at 3
morning.
o'clock in the afternoon, because they would be setting up the
Is
trucks
that-
for the next day.
Is that the way you operate? I don't know.
That is correct. We prep the next day that afternoon, about 3:15. If there's any special equipment that we're doing, just good work practices, so you're out, hitting the road at 9 o'clock after we do our park inspections, that everything's staged. We will stage it inside, and we've been talking about the operations of it. The garage doors will be closed at all times. We don't need to.
Why don't you tell them how many people are going to be here at a time?
I said we have basically it's 7 full-time employees, 2 staff members, and the summertime it's that 7 plus 6 seasonals. So, and that's it.
And most of the time, they all show up to go to work first thing in the morning. They get in their stage vehicle and they go out, and they're usually out most of the time.
Right, we have very few that come back, in wintertime, we come back for lunch, but in the summertime, they take their lunch in the field, so it's gonna be pretty quiet. It'll be a very quiet building. I'll probably be the only one in there, myself or my assistant.
Yeah. I
Sitting in
think
the
the
office.
maximum we thought about was probably 2 to 3 people are gonna be there at one time.
Yeah.
Okay. What about when this stuff gets delivered? I mean, you don't pick it up. These things that go in these bins, it gets delivered? How does that work?
I'll probably be learning in progress, but I'll probably stage deliveries after 9 o'clock, because that's when my staff members come back
Okay.
that can handle, bulk deliveries of that nature. If it's a truck that we have to offload, we pull them inside the building.
We need to manage it for the best of the public. Okay?
Right, we're very sensitive about that.
Okay.
So are
Go
you
on,
willing
Jim.
to make a commitment that you won't use your loader before 8 AM every day?
I won't make that, no, I won't.
Yeah, but what are you gonna use it for? You're gonna take it out.
Yeah, it's gonna go on a trailer, we're gonna load it inside the maintenance shop and take it out on a trailer.
You're talking
Because we're so
using it-
far located to the
No, no,
north
no.
that
No.
I
the
mean,
trailer-
using it there at your lot.
No, using it in the yard.
in the yard, we're gonna facilitate, the loader is a construction piece of equipment. Inside the maintenance yard, we'll be purchasing a forklift to doing that type of material. And like I said, material handling will more than likely take place late mornings or early afternoons.
So he would say yes, he would respond.
Okay. Okay. And the delivery of these kind of materials in bulk, I don't really know how they come. I assume they come like on a dump truck or something?
Dump truck.
Okay. And those are larger vehicles than obviously pickup trucks. And my guess is those do have operating backup alarms, but
Well,
you're not
We
typically...
don't accept deliveries till after 9 o'clock until my
Okay.
crews are back.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Usually comes around lunchtime.
Is there any issue with anything that you're going to be storing outside in the yard that's going to create any sort of odors or the like?
No, sir.
So we're going to have large things of, manure, et
No,
cetera?
there'll be no compost on site
Okay,
or landscape waste.
fair enough. Okay. The yard is enclosed by what?
On the fascia, it'll be a 6-foot on the south side, 6-foot chain link fence with black panels.
Black slats.
Then on the north and south side, be 8 foot high with black slats
I think the back we left open.
left open.
Back will be,
Means the north elevation.
when you say the back will be left open?
Well, it doesn't have to be, but you're gonna have basically those concrete bins that are gonna be up against them. There's 5 of them across that are probably a good 15 feet to 20 feet wide.
Sure.
So I would say pretty much 100 feet is gonna be covered by that, and then basically we left them open.
Really, I have 2 questions. Number one, from the south, it's a gated access to it.
Gated with black slats.
Right, okay, so
6 foot high.
when you're not operating or you're not there, the gate's closed?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. But there would be, should one of our younger residents decide to walk around the back, when you were closed, you could walk kind of next to these things and then be in a little enclosure all of your own?
You could, any kid that wants to go over the top of a fence.
I'm not talking about over the top, no. I'm talking about if
No.
you
Around the
walk
The
around.
fence would go all the way across the back.
Oh, so it does go across the
Yeah,
back?
but it doesn't have the black slats, though. It's just, it's a visual.
Oh, I thought you said it did go, okay.
No, it
Now,
goes all the way across the back.
fair enough, okay.
The whole yard is fenced.
It's fenced, okay.
But it's only screened from certain elevations.
I understand, okay. The next question is that with respect to the fencing material, the chain link with black slats,
Yeah.
do you want to comment how that coordinates with the ordinance?
Okay.
Or rather than being coy, we can let Mr. Calmer tell you.
Yeah, why don't we let John tell us what
Okay.
the ordinance says?
The ordinance requires a wall to be placed as a part of this, made of a similar type of material that the building is made of. In this instance, there is a 6-foot, 7-foot,
6 foot.
6-foot chain link or wire mesh fence out there that does have barbed wire on top of it currently.
Yep.
That fence, we believe, was probably installed by Mr. Cuneo many years ago before the village acquired that land. So the intent here would be to take that fence, not literally take it, but to push it back onto the site and enclose the yards with that same type of material.
Okay. What about site lighting?
Site lighting is from the building. The yard has two light fixtures that are on the west elevation of the building itself, and they light from the building across the yard on the west side. We also have two light fixtures on the east side, over here on the parking lot side, and those also light the parking lot.
What height are those?
Those, Earl, do you remember? 22 feet.
So those are going to be visible from the,
They're going to be visible.
From the
They'll be surface
condominiums.
mounted on the outside. Yeah,
pardon me?
they'll be surface mounted on the outside face of the precast.
Okay.
They're going to have screens or be able to be modified?
Yeah, yeah, they can.
Is there any other site lighting at all?
We don't have any. Presently, right down there in the park, the Ball Diamonds have no lighting.
Right.
The Pavilion has no lighting. The Sledding Hill has no lighting.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that that would be, basketball court. We believe that this would be enough to basically show around the building itself and provide a certain amount of light. We understand it's deficient on the far eastern end of the parking lot itself.
Right.
One thing we're prepared to do is put a 3-inch PVC conduit out to that point, and if we need to do it, then down the line we do. I'm always kind of reticent if there's not a lot of lights in a park itself not to add any more either.
Okay. I guess I'm a little more concerned about the lighting on the west side of the building.
The west side of the building basically was meeting the 0.1 foot candle at the farthest end. And it can be screened and shaded. It's just like you can in any parking lot pole light.
Sure. And my concern is not so much of the migration of the light off the site, because you're pretty much almost at zero at your lot line, it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's more the glare that's going to be evident from the townhomes. Is this lighting going to run at night, or only when you're in operation and it's dark?
It's set on a timer and a photocell.
So it's security lighting, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would run at night then,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, we can set it for whatever time, and if it's on a timer, we can set it off to shut off at a certain time too.
Can it be put on a motion sensor?
Yeah, you could, but I haven't had a lot of success with some of those on an exterior application. Unless you're immediately right in front of it, and you make that move across, let's say, and what you're concerned about is, let's say, somebody hops the fence and he's in there and he's the far end of the lot, 140 feet away. I don't think it's going to pick him up.
Okay. You indicated that your exhausts run out the north side of the building? Okay.
Yes.
And without knowing a little more what you're talking about, what I really want to ask is a little bit different question. There are, though I know it's a fairly large gap between you when we get to Greg's Landing to the north, the nearest building.
Right.
What kind of noise are we looking at here?
The units are all inside the building itself. What you're only seeing is the louver on the outside.
Okay.
What they're for is the CO2 and for the diesel.
So it's pretty much going to run during the business day, not...
They basically have one of the, I can't remember what the stats are on them are, but they
There's
have
sensors, they
they have a
detect
sensor.
carbon monoxide.
Right.
if
When
there's
you reach a
abundance.
certain level, it goes off and it sucks it out.
Okay, and then similarly, your mechanicals are interior, you said, too?
Yep.
Okay, except for there's, what, two condensers?
Two
on the-
condensers on the outside, which are the 30 by 30 inch round. They look almost like residential
Right,
size.
okay.
Because they're only for the office
office.
area and the locker room.
Okay, fair enough. So we understand why is it here and not pushed further east to kind of be, in quotes, more into the park?
Go to the larger kind of plan that shows everything else. On the east side of the parking lot where you have the green area, which is what you're talking about, go back one. You see the rain garden on the farthest east end, so that is going to be there. That's best management practices on the water. As the water leaves the site, it filters it and takes it back into the bioswale and then goes to the CV ditch. That's going to be there no matter what. The area between the rain garden and the parking lot is planned for potentially future parking, but it is not designed and it is not engineered. But that area will be used for a community garden.
Okay, so this was a really bad question I asked. Let me try asking it better. What about just taking the whole thing and just moving it like this down? The whole site. Why was the site determined to be here versus further into the park?
John, maybe you can help me with that because I don't remember why it became where it became. I think it was lining up with, do you remember? Oh, yeah. That was the extent of the floodplain, and this is actually outside the floodplain.
Okay, so in other words, you couldn't build there.
Go to the next.
For lack of a better way
go
to
the
put
next
it.
slide.
Yeah.
Show the aerial.
Okay, go back to the aerial. Go further.
There you go.
So there you go. That actually became, there's the CV ditch right there. That became, when we went in there and assessed the site originally, and we went to Army Corps of Engineers, all the people like that, they basically told us that you need to go back about this particular distance because there were tendencies and species that indicated it was a floodplain.
Okay.
As long as we're on this slide, can I ask John a couple questions? Does the village own the entire strip of dark green land that we see?
Yes,
And it's all zoned conservation open space?
correct.
Was there ever any design when it was zoned that way that in the future we would do something else with it?
There may have been some discussions early on about potentially putting a road through there, being a connection that actually would run from Lakeview all the way to Butterfield.
Okay.
So that may have occurred as a part of a larger discussion. I was not included in it, but it lines up very well to do that.
In an environment where we want to preserve as much open space as we can and green space, why would we take something that's zoned conservation, open space, and do anything with it? Number one, and this is probably, well, I'll go ahead and answer that, and then I'll ask my
Well,
next
you're
question.
making a statement.
All
I
right.
don't know what the
Well,
answer is.
the only thing that I can't, and by the way, it's got nothing to do with the
That's
building.
fine. No, that's fine.
If we had any company come before us and wanted to build this type of facility 125 feet from a resident, I don't believe we'd ever approve it. And that's the thing that I think we need to think about. I also think changing this from open space to anything is the wrong thing to do. And that's got nothing to do with your building.
No, I understand.
So that's just my thought. I mean, I think this is really a bad idea.
Okay.
How, can you, how close is your current facility on Phillip to the residential areas of Deer Path?
I don't know.
Right within,
Couple hundred feet?
they'd be pushing it, I'd say about 190, 200 foot. It's right behind us, across the little creek.
And when was that facility put there?
A long time ago.
1986, I think.
Okay, and I don't believe making the same mistake twice justifies it making it a second
Well,
time.
and that's not my point
Oh,
here.
all right.
So, it's a reference point more than anything else.
We, on the alternative there too is that it's a relatively very benign building. There's not a lot of people in this building. Mainly they're storing their equipment, and that's one of the main reasons why they want to get out of the other facility. It's not acceptable anymore.
And I don't argue the need for the facility, not at all. That is not my intent at all.
Yeah.
I just think taking open space, conservation open space, is wrong. And I think putting this facility 125 feet from one resident is wrong. But I struggle more with the conservation myself.
I will tell you that we did hold 2 meetings. We did it with the Greg's Landing North HOA, and we explained the entire project. They had 7 or 8 people that showed up, and everybody seemed to understand it and was very positive on it. We also did have one for the Century Park HOA, and basically we went through the property manager to organize it, as well as we went through the condominium association. And this is the first negative we've gotten. We haven't gotten any negative up to this particular point at all.
Well,
And certainly not at our meeting.
I view part of my responsibility, and I can't speak for the commission, is to do what's best for the village long-term.
Right.
And I believe preserving open spaces is what's good for the village long-term. And I think a maintenance facility that close to a residential area is also a concern. And granted, okay, 540 feet away with Greg's Landing, I can imagine they wouldn't care because there's a train between them and this facility. So it just comes back to we're taking open green space
Right.
and we're putting a building there. And again, I don't argue the fact that we need a parks building, not at all. I just don't think that's the right place. And I almost believe not, well, you know what, I'll stop there.
Well, we think it is the right place because it's actually right near where it's going to serve.
Okay, Jeff?
I have just some architectural and maybe some landscape questions.
Sure.
Do the slat colors in the fence come in anything other than black, like a dark green or something a little softer?
They do. The reason we kind of chose black and what we've had experience with other facilities is that black tends to disappear.
You look at backstops and tennis courts, oh, excuse me. In landscape, my experience is black disappears. You look at ball diamonds, tennis courts, if they're black, you don't see them. If they're any other color, dark green, they really stand out. I mean, next time you drive through a park, look at the backstops, look at the tennis courts. If they're black, they disappear. If they're green or just plain galvanized, they do stand out.
Or even a lighter beige color, those kind of things too. It also depends on the landscaping, and that's why we put a lot of effort on landscaping on the front of the building, so a lot of this does disappear.
Going back to disappearing, I would just make a suggestion on the coping, maybe going to a lighter color to help fade the building into the sky a little bit. With the solid dark brown, it just defines the edge more.
Yeah. Go back to the elevations, Earl. I think the renderings come out a little bit dark sometimes. You know, sometimes it's hard to control. We do have those colors with us. And what we did was, Jeff, we actually matched the pavilion. The green there is actually the color that's on the pavilion on the hardy board. The brown is really only I think one pattern all the way through the middle of the building itself. And again, we were trying to blend it in with a lot of the landscaping. The problem that they have is that if they go a lighter color, they're concerned that it's going to get dirty.
The brown's this up here?
And then it's going to look dirty.
And this up
They don't want it to look dirty.
brown? And this is the green, and the beige is...
I guess I have a village question. Were there any
Beige,
other
green,
sites identified for this
Green.
building rather than this one?
Not that I know of. This was the site that was brought to us right out of the box, and
Top and the
it
bottom.
was available, and the village made it available to us, and
Yeah, and
we worked with that site and made it work.
Okay.
We think there's some positives too. I mean, they're going to get some additional parking. You got the community garden. We've got drainage issues right now. You know, as we learned with the last rain, that we need to,
Different.
correct these things. And that's why we're creating the bioswale and all those
Yeah.
kind of things, basically to handle that.
So Kurt, the beige,
The beige is the lighter color at the top.
okay,
The green, which is between the windows, and then at the base,
so that's,
are that. And then there's also a baseline of the beige at the very, very, very bottom.
okay,
This is,
And then the brown is the one in the middle,
got it.
which lines up again with the asphalt shingle roof.
this
Got it.
is the same brown?
And
Nope,
the
at the top.
top of the parapet wall?
That's the same brown?
The parapet wall, that's got a brown cap on it.
Got it.
Oh, okay.
That's a metal cap.
Okay.
Is the village ownership of Indian Wood extend all the way to the parking lot? Sled Hill?
No, it does not. It terminates at the entrance to the parking lot itself.
Keep going,
Becomes a driveway,
keep going,
so.
I
going.
didn't follow.
keep going. If you look at this overhead right here, I think where John is explaining it is where it starts to turn.
Right.
Go back over the other end,
Arrow is?
other end. Come on, Earl.
No,
Go over the,
Way over here.
Right.
Way over here.
Oops, that
Yeah.
doesn't help.
Way over here. Keep going. Right there. That's where Indian Wood ends.
Right.
So
And-
whose road is that the Park
It's the
District's
Park
road?
District's road, that's right. So we're actually fronting on to Park District property.
And the drainage from the site, you said is gonna head east, it would never cross that roadway?
No, no. You get, as the storm showed us down here at the end of Indianwood, you do have some ponding down here on this end, but all of the grading will, from our site, go to the east itself. And it's all been set up to do that, which is good because it's going to go through the rain garden or the borrow swell, and it's going to be filtered as it goes back.
Will the speed bumps in the access drive remain?
They stay.
What
They
is the,
stay.
I hate speed bumps, but that's just
I know,
me.
they're really good on your suspension, but
what is the disposition of the
Yeah.
existing facility?
I'm sorry.
What are you going to do with your existing facility?
The existing facility at 7 East Phillips has been undetermined. We don't know what we're going to do with it, possibly cold storage.
So it'll still be existing, okay.
but you don't plan on operating out of it.
No, we don't.
Now, you're requesting several variances in order to build this facility.
That's right.
Um, How many trains use that line right now? Do we know?
I haven't seen one
I
the whole
think,
time.
it's five or so, maybe a day. And they're very intermittent simply because a majority of the freight that was running on there is now running north-south on the north-central line. The E and J&A comes around and then connects and intersects there by the cement plant on Butterfield Road and sends the freight north. So it's very few, and whenever a train does run through there, it's 6, 8, 10 cars behind a small engine.
Is there, if we approve this building with variances allowing it to be built so close to the rear of this site, do we have any liability if a train were to derail and hit the building?
I'm not aware that we would have any liability whatsoever.
Because they couldn't come back and said, well, you should have never built, your village standards are such, and you should have never built the village.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware that there'd be any liability.
Is there landscaping in the depression between the property and the railroad tracks?
We just are going to put native grasses in that area back there because, again, when you go from the 10-foot at the back of the building to the property line, the right-of-way, it's solid trees. So it'll return back to a natural state.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I did note earlier, and I should have, so I apologize, that also Commissioner Baloo is not involved in this because of his involvement with the Park District, nor is he had any involvement prior to this date regarding this matter. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, since this is a public hearing, I know notices were sent out. Do we receive any responses, John?
I did not receive any.
Okay, fair enough. Did you receive any responses to any sort of notice of
No,
this?
sir.
No, we did not either.
Okay, fair enough. At this point, you can actually sit down for a moment. This is a public hearing, and if anyone from the public wishes to speak with regard to this request in any regard, we'd like to hear from you. The only rules are you have to speak from a microphone, as you probably have heard already, and we ask that you give us your name and a way to identify you. So, however would like to speak. Okay, yes, sir.
Well, this is a little new to me. My name is Jim Schmidt. I live at 15 Cedar, Unit 7. I'm on the second floor. I bought my unit 25 years ago. The plan was I was going to live there 5 years. And what came of that was I enjoyed where I was living. And I didn't need a bigger place. I didn't have family or need to do Thanksgiving dinners or anything like that. So what I learned about living there was I drove to the end of the line, back to the cul-de-sac back there, and it was very quiet. It was very nice. And it had this forested bucolic wall that was very nice, very quiet, and it insulated me from any of the railroad traffic that was out there. regardless if it was a lot of traffic or a little traffic, but you didn't even know it was there anymore. Another thing I liked about that wild passage, because it was a passage for a variety of animals. And I enjoyed getting swooped over by a big owl. I enjoyed that one evening. I enjoyed the hawks. I enjoyed listening to the coyotes in the fall and in the spring, although they seem to have gone away now lately. Another thing we've probably decimated. So the point I want to make is that, as you brought up, you know, here's this reserved place for nature, and it's small and narrow, but it's very nice, and it's been an important thing for me to enjoy at the end of the day. And I can get out of my car, park right there, and get out of my car, and sometimes I just stop in the middle of the parking lot. At night, it's been very nice because I can look at the stars. It's sheltered from a lot of the city lights and so forth. I can look at, remember my star constellations, or look at the planets or whatever's out there. I mean, it's been very nice to me. And now that we've decided to mow down everything that's back there, I'm looking at this ugly thing, and this description that I've seen here now is going to be more ugly. And we've lost this whole nature communication. My condo was very much like living in or part of the park district, because we got the big sled hill there, we've got walk paths right there, we've got the lakes right there, and we've developed some little recreation stuff back there, the hockey, the ice rink and so forth. I think those are fine things. But I think that this maintenance facility is a debacle. I don't think it's been thought of very well. It doesn't look like anybody's looked for alternative places to go. It sounds like somebody could do that. It doesn't seem like it would be a big deal. Over there on Butterfield, you've got that one facility over there, and it has easement up to the what is that called? You've got the Public Works facility, and north of the Public Works facility, there's an empty space up there doesn't look like it's being used very well. And so perhaps the unit could be put over there and accommodated over there somehow, because you've got provisions and you've got the space between that public work and the railroad. I think could be better utilized. Right? Now, having said that, I wanted to discuss an economic implication. I see this thing as taking away some of my property value. I don't think this is going to be enhancing my property value at all. I mean, to resell this thing, recently, I should say, we've seen property values go down, and we expect that, and they're going to go back up again, all right? But here's where I want to throw a kind of a curve at you. I think it's a little nonsense, but I want you to understand and appreciate the impact of what this thing might do. I'm going to say that my unit is maybe, it's worth more than $80,000 right now, okay? But I'm going to say that as a number. It's a nice conservative number that people aren't going to argue about. Well, the number of buildings that are surrounding that unit, there's about 60 units. It's actually about 66 units, 66 condo units. So let's say 60 units. And if they are valued at $80,000, that's $4.8 million of value of those units, right? If we took this complex and we just slid the whole thing, you were talking about sliding it further east as a possibility. Well, what if we slid it a block or two west? Okay? The size of that would take up about 8 houses over there. You know, there's houses on that side of Indianwood. But those 8 houses, if they were, let's say they're $300,000 apiece. I'm picking a number. Is that a reasonable number? Say 300,000. For the size of this, if there were 8 of those at 300,000, that's $2.4 million value. So whatever depreciation percentage-wise might happen, if we did it to 8 houses at with a total of $2.4 million versus the 60 condos that we've got, which is $4.8 million. So the impact to me, it seems to me, is not only is it a personal impact on my property and my personal value, wealth, whatever that might be, it's going to happen to 60 property owners. All right? So I think there's an economic implication here, you know, like I say, the financial implication would be less if we imposed on 8 houses at $300,000 apiece. All right? So there was the thought. I would like to know, I think this is going to be ugly, just at the west end of these units, from my vantage point on the second floor, I'm going to look at these concrete holding dumps for the chopped up trees and for the gravel and the dirt and whatever else they're going to throw in there. That's going to be my new view, rather than having the wild trees that we had. There was nothing sculpted about them. There was nothing synthetic about them. It was just wild, forested landscape, and it was wonderful. All right. So now I get to look at that. I'm going to get to look at the steel reinforced fencing, right? Whether it be black or green or whatever the hell it is, it doesn't matter. It's going to be ugly. It's not bucolic. It's not what I've lived with for 25 years. And what are we going to do now to dampen this railroad noise? Might not be a lot, but there's still going to be railroad noise, and it's going to come bouncing off of concrete buildings now. I'm not fond of that either. So let's see. I think that pretty much wraps up what I had to say. All right. I think I've made a point pretty clearly from an economic point of view that I think this is a terrible choice. I'm not happy. There are a lot of other people that aren't happy. I'm disappointed that there wasn't a bigger turnout. But I don't think this is a good thing. And I would like to see some investigation to find a better location. Put it out near the schools. I mean, there's a lot of land out there. You're not talking about a lot of land here. But if it were near the school district or something, I don't think that's going to make a whole bunch of difference. I think it's going to be fine. Or, I don't know, it's just, this was not well thought through. And from a design point of view, from a natural, bucolic, nice place to live kind of thing, I don't think so. And then finally, to attack it and take it off of the people in those condos there are low to middle class, low income to middle class people, and some of us are in fixed income that have retired, and to take a chunk out of our investment, I think is lousy, and no, I don't think this is. I think what's been designed here is fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I just think that its location is despicable and not well thought out at all. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else, please? Ma'am?
Good evening. I'm Tony Litzo, and I am also a resident at 7 Cedar Court. And
Can you spell your last name for me?
it's Leitzow.
Can I ask you a question before you start? How many stories is your building?
3.
3. Okay, thank you.
And, well, I didn't know this building was going to be 2 stories, but I do want to express that I think this is not a very good location, and not only is it taking away more trees, but I don't know if you gentlemen have been over there, but there's been so many trees cleared from that park. It used to be a beautiful park, all trees like the gentleman before me. But why I'm really here is I don't think anyone here is aware that there are owls that are living over there. I have pictures of them. I've been watching these owls for about 10 years because I have a dog. I'm in the park very early in the morning. Just recently, in the last month, they have babies. There's 2 baby owls. And I was concerned when they were building the warming house that these owls were going to, you know, relocate. They did stay, and they did recently just have 2 babies that I have been able to see. They're kind of hard to see. But this land, there's 3 large willow trees just east of this lot. And it's not very far, but it's going to be taking away from, you know, their habitat. And so I would deeply like you to not change the zoning for this building. And I do agree that there's got to be a better place. It is a very small area, and between the warming house, the basketball court, which are all nice things. I lived there. But they're really taking away from the beauty, the natural beauty that was there. And so I hope you consider that. I want the village to have their building and everything, but there are some other things to consider. And not only the animals, but us that live in the condos right there. I don't think it's going to be very attractive. And I think people are going to be disturbed with the additional traffic, and a 2-story building right there is, I don't know, doesn't appeal to me. But if you could keep in mind these owls, I'd love to show you the pictures because they're amazing. They're amazing, and they're right there in our backyard.
Yeah.
I hope they stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And my name is Timothy Cummings. This is my girlfriend Tony. I live at 7 Cedar as well. Wanted to echo what Mr. Schmidt had to say. I couldn't agree more and couldn't have put that any better. And also, Mr. Garaga, am I pronouncing it correct? Very well said. And if you'd have kept going, it would have been quite all right, but very well said what you had to put forth. I just think aesthetically it's a bad idea. I think the gentleman had mentioned that there hadn't been much protest, I think, in 2 prior meetings. I think what's happened now is that people are tired of the eyesore of bulldozers. I think we just had the snow, I think they were there for snow removal, if I'm not mistaken. That sat there a few months too long, I think. So on an aesthetic level, aside from perhaps a necessity to have this building, I think aesthetically it's just a bad idea. There wasn't anything wrong with what was there, which was nice trees that weren't too perfect. They'd been there for quite a while. So I just think overall, it's the increase of traffic coming through is something else that seems to be rather a sticking point. And not to mention even more of an increase of police presence. I realize it's easy to just say, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why should I have to worry about it? But it seems more times often than not, there's more police. If I were coming to visit and saw the increase of police presence that's taken place, I would think there's high crime in the area. So it leads me to think that with a maintenance facility to match the super duper warming house, because now there'll be a super duper maintenance facility, there's going to be more cameras. There's going to be, I would think there's going to be more demand now, or a feeling that the police would need to be patrolling even more through there. While notwithstanding that it's a necessity, I just feel that that increased police presence might not necessarily be too smart either. But just having said that, that's what I have to say. I appreciate you taking a moment, and I just think that this aesthetically is probably not the best of moves, and that other options could have been sought. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi. My name
Wait.
is Jack Bakke.
Wait till you're up.
Take your time.
I live at 6 Echo Court.
Give us your name again? I'm sorry.
What's that?
Give us your name again.
Last name is Bakke, B-A-K-K-E. My first name is John. And I live at 6 Echo Court, number 6. And the only thing I'm complaining about, earlier in the hearing, it said this project had been brought up to a homeowners association meeting. To my knowledge, this had not been done. I don't miss any homeowners association meetings, and to best of my knowledge, I don't remember that being done. Now, we did have a meeting last week that was canceled. Maybe this was what's supposed to have been brought up at that time. That's the only thing I'm complaining about, is that we, the homeowners, at least the number of us that attended meetings, to my knowledge, are not aware of what we were talking about and what was brought up in the meeting, that yes, they'd been contacted, homeowners association. To my knowledge, that had not been done. And I agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Would the public notice have gone to all the residents in this?
They're talking about it, they're talking about a separate meeting.
Yeah,
Separate.
right.
Right.
Well, hello, gentlemen. I'm Kenneth Strom. I own a unit at 15 Cedar Court also on the 3rd floor. And I just want to reiterate, I think you've heard already, I'm really concerned. I like that natural barrier that was there. It was tremendous. And I'm really surprised that was allowed to be taken down without approval of the structure in advance. And it's really distressing to see all that bare land. We, like the gentleman said, there's over 60 condos, and we all like that natural barrier. And this will absolutely impact the lives of a lot of people who live over there, aesthetically and economically. So I would ask that you not approve the zoning change and have them consider other sites first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well then, hearing no one else seeking to give public comment, what we'll do is we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. Based upon what we heard, I'm sure the other commissioners have some questions, but since I get to talk first, I get to ask them first. What is actually being removed for purposes of construction, if this would go ahead, versus, and what has already been removed that we just heard about?
The lot was cleared, and the parameters of what you have seen cleared right now is the extent of our property
Okay.
that we've talked about, the 700 feet by the 120.
What came out?
It was all invasive species. There was nothing, the only reason we were allowed to clear it was that there was nothing that was native.
Okay.
It was all invasive species.
Okay. There was a comment regarding that there was not a homeowners meeting, and I'm going to get the association wrong. Is it Century North? Or do I have it wrong? I have it wrong? What is?
No, Century Condominium Association, correct?
Century Condominium.
Yeah.
Wait, so what is it? Let's try again. What's the association? Could someone volunteer the name for me? Century Park. Okay. Was there a meeting with the Century Park Condominium Association unit owners?
March 19th.
Okay, that was with the unit owners or with the management? Just so
We
we're
went
clear.
through the property management as well as the president of the condo association.
Okay.
So they were both informed. And we worked very hard to get
Well,
those
which is
meetings.
fine, but just as a comment, that's great. It really doesn't matter. I mean, we have residents here that are speaking, and I think that's of greater value. Go ahead, John. I mean, if the president of my HOA were to speak, still as a resident, they have a right to disagree with them.
They have a right to come in and disagree. You are correct, but I just want everybody to know we made a good attempt and we tried to inform everybody way early
Fair enough.
what was going on.
Okay, that was March 19th.
Yep.
That March 19th meeting, that was with, it sounds like the homeowners, or the association president and the manager of the association. Was it attended by anyone else?
It was attended by 4 people.
Which I presume were owners?
Let me ask you, Earl, do you know who was there?
You have to speak in a microphone.
I can't recall the names of the people that were there, but they were owners of condos within that building, the buildings.
Okay. And were they shown essentially the presentation that we were shown this evening?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Okay.
They weren't just board members of that condo association, they were residents.
We also sent out public notice to all the residents, and we asked that they inform the residents. These are the people that showed up.
But when you say you sent a public notice, you talk about public notice of this hearing or public notice of a prior meeting?
For prior meetings. And then
Okay.
we had, for the committee of the whole meeting we had earlier presenting the concept.
Right, okay. There were comments by, whenever I try to pronounce somebody's name, I do it badly. Let's now? I told you I pronounced it wrong. Okay. Ms. Litzo made some comments regarding certain wildlife. Okay, I've been in the park. I've had children that have played baseball in the park, etc., so I'm familiar with that. But I don't live there, so I don't know this. Has there been anything that has been akin to any sort of wildlife that's being, if you will, evicted because of this?
We didn't believe that would be a problem because from this facility, that strip of land goes all the way to Butterfield Road.
I understand.
And when we took down, the trees or the invasive species that we were taking down, we didn't really have any nests or anything. So we didn't have any habitat specifically in the area that we were
Not in that
dealing
area.
with.
Okay.
May I ask?
No, of course. Please.
To add on to that question. Has anything been studied as far as the impact of the facility and its operations on the surrounding wildlife?
No.
I guess, why was the lot cleared so early?
We requested to do that because it was so dense that we had to define the property. And to define the property, we had to clear it. And that was the reason why we did it. We couldn't get a firm survey of the property grade-wise because of how, overgrown it was. And that was why. So we went to the village and we asked, could we do that? And we received an approval to do that.
There's actually an intergovernmental agreement between the village and the park district that allowed that to occur, with the caveat or conditions of that agreement that if in fact this building does not move forward, that the site will be revegetated and ultimately will reforest itself. So they'll have to plant trees and revegetate it as to go forward if the building does not get built.
Okay. You had an elevation that you showed us that had landscaping on it of the west of your site.
Mm-hmm.
Can we see that, please?
Okay, he'll flip to it. No, go back.
No.
Go back again. That is from the southwest corner looking across, and that's from some length. The other photo was when you got closer.
Right, I understand. Okay.
Yeah, so this is probably more of in keeping with their view.
Okay, so let me ask you, looking at this, the way this is, I learned earlier today, though I've driven it innumerable times, I just didn't notice, there's berming that is on the south side of this road, is that correct?
It's actually a ditch.
On the south side?
On the south side of the road.
South.
Oh, on the other side?
Yes. Is that
I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know.
right? Do you want
On the south side, on the condominium side
Yes.
of the road, there is a current berm.
Right.
And the park district does plan on adding additional.
That's my question.
Trees
We
along
haven't
that
seen
berm.
anything there, and I'd like to know what's going to go there. And let me not hide, this is where I'm going. Should this be built, okay, my concern is that when you look at this, and I know this is a closer view that you're showing us now compared to the one before, what is going to be the effective view? Right now, I'm looking at basically 4 widely spaced evergreens against some sort of, looks like black wall type fence. So what I want to know is, vis-a-vis what had been there, clearly it's a developed site, so it can't look exactly like it did before.
Right.
But when you add the berming and planting on the berming on the south side of, it's the driveway, it's not really Indianwood, the driveway, and whatever else you're going to do here, how is that going to impact, if at all, what would be the views and the vistas from the residence units that we've heard about?
Well, Joe, can you speak to it, the size of material and everything like that? I'm going to let him address this, but
Fair, that's fine.
my point on this is I also want you to know when, in the 3 to 5 year period, how big they're going to be and what they're going to be and so on and so forth. The one other thing I wanted to point out, in that little gully or that bioswale that goes along the front there, remember, those are going to be native grasses.
You're talking about on the north side of the drive now.
I'm talking on the north side of the driveway. Those are going to be native grasses, and those grasses are going to grow up quite a bit. So this looks like it's very manicured and everything like that. There are certain times of year they have to cut them,
I understand.
cut them down, but it's going to look a lot more natural than it's looking right now.
Okay, so what I'm looking at here, am I looking at, putting that aside, what
Yeah.
you just said, these 1, 2, 3, 4 would appear to be evergreens?
Mhm.
Is this at planting or is this at 5 years?
That's a 5-year view.
Okay.
Correct.
Walk us through what this site, though, would look like from the vistas that we were talking about from the residents with regard to whatever you're going to put on that berm also, which is on the south side of that driveway, and what else is going to be here? Because you're telling me that this is not really a fair representation. I want to understand how it's not fair.
I'm not sure I can answer that because, for one, as many times as I've been to this site, I did not see that berm, so I can't tell you what the berm looks like. If
Okay, wait.
Mike, talk to this about the damn berm.
I'm very familiar with that berm that runs along the south side of Indianwood Drive. Currently, it's planted, I couldn't tell you how many coniferous trees there, but in this year's coming budget.
Let's see the aerial. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, show the berm on there.
Right in here.
Yeah.
That berm right through there.
Right.
This fall, I'll be planting that with approximately 15 to 20 evergreens, concord, firs, blue spruce, maybe some cypress, maybe a couple deciduous trees,
Wait, are you saying currently or to be done?
to be this fall
On a separate project.
on a separate project.
That's what I understand. That's why I want to understand what this is really going to
Yeah.
all look like.
We'll put evergreens there. I'm gonna put some deciduous, crimson maple, maybe some red maples there for good fall color. Maybe a catalpa, Kentucky coffee tree along that berm.
what size?
Probably 2.5 inch to 3 inch.
Okay.
You know, catalpas grow very, very fast. Red maple, they're pretty aggressive.
Yeah, those are quick.
They grow fast. So our intent is to, that berm is add, basically twice what's there now, we're gonna double it.
Okay, now, I don't know how high this berm is. It's, whatever. It's not 40 feet, but it's probably not a foot either. It's something in between.
Yes.
Okay. When you juxtapose what you're planting on this berm to the condominium buildings that are there, can you reference it in terms of looking out those windows? Is the canopy of those going to be at those window height? Are we going to look above it? Are we going to look, how are we going to?
Don't know, I've never been on the second deck of any of those condominiums.
Okay.
Let's say, though,
But you have an idea what the heights
we're
are?
going to make an assumption.
Sure.
It's
That's all we
only
can-
it's only an assumption. So let's say that berm has got a 4-foot spread, because that's a pretty shallow one. And even at 5, when you initially plant it, you got a 3-inch piece of material in there. How tall is the top of it?
15 feet.
15 feet. So you're talking 19 feet. Usually these are 10-10, so you would be right at the window
Of which floor?
in the second floor.
Second.
Right, because usually the condominiums are 10 or 11 feet.
Fair enough. Okay, now, you indicated some species, and I can't, I'll tell you how quickly this stuff grows, but you're going to tell me how quick this grows. How quick is that canopy going to reach that we just described to the third floor?
Okay, you're going to ask me a question I can't answer.
Sure you can.
No, I really can't.
We swore you as the expert tonight, not me.
It depends on what tree, it depends on how big it is initially.
Fair enough.
If I think I know where this is going, and if I may.
Sure.
If you're wanting to screen this facility from these units better, you're better off doing it on our side of the property. You're better off using larger trees right now in front of our property.
That's what I want to get at, is what is going to be looked at.
I think that doing it across on the south side is going to be nice, but it's not going to screen this facility. If you want to screen this facility, in my opinion, we should do more on that. Make those trees initially larger, or go with the larger shade trees clustered down there.
Okay, but would you agree that when you say screen the facilities, you can screen the facility from road traffic, which is one thing, but it's slightly different saying we're screening it from the residences?
What I'm referring to is from the residences.
Okay.
The second and third floor.
I want to make sure we're talking about the same
Folks,
thing.
if we want to screen the views or limit the views into this, we want to put larger trees on our property right by that facility.
Because what I'm getting at, and what I think many of the residents are getting at, that should this be built, what impact does it have on their line of sight view and vista? And putting aside, and it's, for the kind of building is, it's very nicely done, but it's probably not an architectural masterpiece. It isn't the cathedral at Chartres or anything. It hasn't quite wrote.
It's meeting utilitarian
I understand.
value.
Yeah, I know, I understand.
Utilitarian value that's going to be
Sure.
Low maintenance.
No, I understand all those, and I understand why you have those in public buildings, et cetera. And I'm not at all saying the building is not well designed or anything, but what I'm getting at is that what we're hearing is that the surrounding residents, rather than coming to a home that had a facility there. They're having a facility now added, and they're concerned about their vista and their view, and I think you have the same concern because they're also your constituents. And as a result of that, what I think we're trying to get at is, if, should the village board ultimately approve this, what is the way to make that approval the most palatable, recognizing the wildlife concerns, the vista concerns, the use concerns we've talked about, et cetera. And you're saying that the best way to address at least some of those is on the north side of that drive versus what you're doing on the south, which still may be a good thing for other reasons.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to add on top of that too, remember again, there's no mechanical equipment on top of this
Right.
building. And again, it's being designed such that we can put all of our stuff inside. That's a big part of the factor, because what we have right now is not inside, and it's not being taken care of the way it should.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And I think that's all good. And I think it's especially good when it's adjacent to a residence, because you lose a lot of, even though we always say that all these things are silent, nothing is truly silent in our life, and that's going to help a lot for the noise, et cetera. But I'm right now talking, we haven't gotten to use yet, and there are some use concerns that you've already addressed. But what I'm talking about is that should the village board approve this, is there a way that it would approve it that has the least negative impact on the concerns you've heard, which range from the view vista, which one gentleman has translated into some estimate of value, and also the issues that we have, having wildlife habitats and the like. Now, I know we're not going to build eagles' nests and things like that, because that's just not practical.
Right.
This isn't Ryerson Woods. So what I really want to get at, I don't know which of the three gentlemen really want to address this, is with what you've heard, with what you're doing on the south side, and recognizing that these are your constituents as well, is there other concerns or issues that we can talk about? It's not the building, it's kind of what's around it. Maybe want to help? Jeff, you're the architect, not me. I'm the lawyer.
If I could, addressing the wildlife issue.
Sure.
What we're going to be putting back we're going to be putting back habitat for wildlife.
Okay.
The native plantings that are going to be the native prairie, and the plantings that Kurt has alluded to that are going to go in the bioswale and the rain garden will attract wildlife. We do wildlife enhancement work like this all the time in parks, and that's one of the key benefits, is that in addition to the cleansing of stormwater runoff, it's wildlife enhancement. So I think that this solution will enhance wildlife. And as I said previously, the sightline issue, if we did some more larger material nearer the maintenance yard and near the facility, I think we can alleviate some of those other concerns.
I'm just looking at the aerial shot here for view corridors. I do think that, just based on the location of the building, it does minimize views from the majority of the units. I believe these units mostly live front to back. So as far as, I'm pointing at my little screen here, but I think for residents' sake, most of them are looking at the ball fields or the sled hill, and then the others that are perfectly north-south are looking straight across the undisturbed area. And then it's just the one that's in the parking lot that might have a view towards the building, and then the side of the one on the end. And architecturally, it's it's a nice palette of colors. I do still think that the top edge could be a lighter color to fade it off a little bit.
Which we'd be willing to do.
And I do agree that planting closer to the building would hide it better than on the south side.
Okay. Okay, since they're not jumping in, let me ask you some use questions. Should the village board approve this, you've indicated that your projected use really is that you start work at 7, but you really don't start operations around the building till a later point in time.
That's correct.
Okay, and what I'm really going for is kind of what I think, was it Jim asked? Somebody asked you, deliveries are one issue. I know on one hand you use smaller vehicles, the park district itself, but if this gets delivered in dump trucks, et cetera, Those are larger vehicles with more noise and backup alarms and the like. We've done this in other locations for commercial users, that we can get some sort of agreement that you would limit, and there's always exceptions,
Yeah,
so you don't have to tell me about that. But you would limit to the best of your ability
Right, we're not looking
deliveries
at, we're
to a
not looking
later
at,
time.
weekly deliveries.
Right.
With 4 bins, that's,
You're not going to.
you get one dump truck down there,
But you can limit, you can.
it's not gonna be very
okay,
busy.
But you can limit your acceptance of deliveries.
Yes, I
to a
can.
late- Okay, that's number one. Number two, you can limit, it sounds like, the use of your yard in any sort of obtrusive manner, other than just, the coming and going.
That's correct.
Till a later hour as well. Okay, you talked about the lighting on the building, that it illuminates the yard for security. Okay, it sounds like you've also agreed that you can somehow limit the
screen.
glare from that
We can
through the
screen
screening.
Yeah.
Okay. You said that you're not going to do outdoor storage of vehicles. Now,
That is correct.
If it's clearly behind a fully screened fence, that's okay, but I don't know how tall everything is that you
they're
have.
just pickup trucks.
Okay.
We have nothing,
Okay.
we have nothing tall.
I assume you're not going to store vehicles in the lot to the east?
That is
either.
correct.
So you're not going to do that either? Okay. We've talked about the wildlife, blah, blah, blah. Okay, anybody else?
Just for clarification, John, on your report on page 2, where you talk,
I can look at page
you're
2.
talking about property ownership, and in there it talks about the lease will require the creation of a tax division parcel.
Yep.
Could you explain what you mean there?
Well, what it does is it establishes, it defines an area with a legal description, and establishes then a PIN number on that for tax purposes. It's not a pure subdivision. It just creates the outline of an area by which you then can apply. You can lease. You can apply a tax a PIN number to it, and it can be taxed on a separate basis.
Then on page 5, under rezoning number 3,
Yep.
I'm not sure if you're misspoke there, or I'm just not understanding. You said in the COS district,
Oh, you're right.
the proposed use is allowed special use.
Yeah, it should be PIB.
Okay.
Yep.
So in COS, it's not allowed at all, correct?
Correct.
But it is defined as a special use. Yep,
COS?
pull out the book.
I don't think so, Kurt.
A permitted special use.
Good thing you brought your book tonight.
Keep asking your questions. I'll get you in a minute.
Are you going to make a comment to the Section 18?
Yeah, we're going to have to, yeah, when we get to the special use, right. Jeff?
It was mentioned earlier that one of the previous ideas was to have a connector road through the property, so this would eliminate that possibility for the village, correct?
I'm sorry, ask the question again?
Earlier it was stated that this put the whole swath of
Strip.
land, the whole strip of land, could have had a connector road at one point or in the future, so this would kind of preclude that from happening.
Correct. And there's other environmental issues there that would come into play. As the petitioner indicated, you have the CV ditch and the large area of floodplain. Secondly, none of the village's plans, comprehensive or transportation plans, calls for that connection at all. So it's highly unlikely that would take place. And thirdly, to build this road would be inordinately expensive and something we couldn't afford to do, quite frankly. So, going back to the question about COS, this facility is not permitted either as a permitted or special use permit. That's why we're rezoning the property.
And one of the other questions brought up by the people in attendance today was what other sites were considered?
We weren't really considering any other sites because this is actually located in the parks for the majority of the area where they're going to be maintaining things. The problem with other locations is that then you're transporting equipment to go tear and maintain things. And these are right connected to these parks. And therefore, there is not a lot of transportation of equipment and materials.
As part of our program for this maintenance garage, we went through the Corporate Woods area, and, there's a lot of vacant buildings here. They just have a good connection for us logistically to support our operations throughout the district, because they're over off of Milwaukee and Route 45, would have to come down, Fairview Boulevard. So we checked empty buildings, what their pricing was, but logistically, with the amount of traffic that we'd have to take our mowers and our trucks down, it wasn't a good fit.
Right.
And we did check across our current garage. There's an empty parking lot where the immediate care center is, but that parking lot just proved to be, excessively just cost prohibitive.
It's right where they need the equipment.
Okay. Anybody else? You want to say anything in conclusion?
No, our timeframes are tight, our budgets are tight, and we're trying to pursue forward because we intend to try to get going in June.
Okay. Okay, anything?
Thank you.
Okay. Whoops. As you've heard already this evening, and as many of you know, what we have is we have a standing motion to recommend approval of certain things, then we vote on, and we can either vote it up or down. And it goes then as a recommendation to the village board, which has the final decision-making power on the recommendations that we make. Tonight, there's been a request by the Vernon Hills Park District for 4 separate approvals or recommendations for approval. The first being a motion to recommend approval to change the zoning classification for a portion of the property set forth on the plat of survey from its current zoning of COS 1 Conservation Open Space District to PIB Public and Institutional Buildings District. There are a significant number of conditions of approval that have been provided in the staff report to us, as well as certain variations that come in, but then additional conditions that ultimately any plans would require approval of the village engineer, landscape architect prior to building issuance. Parking area, if it is expanded, would need to be shown. Third, as part of any expansion of the parking lot, landscaping consistent with the existing design would need to be provided and reviewed by the village board. Fourth, signage must comply with the sign ordinance. Fifth, compliance with all other ordinances and standards. And then this evening, we spoke about a number of other issues. One issue is that, I guess it would be 6, the lease to the park district, we've been informed, but just to make it part of the clear record, would limit this use to a public use, so it couldn't be sold for private or sublet for private use later. 7, in terms of, for lack of a better word, use restriction, the park district has indicated that it will use best efforts and work with staff regarding no outdoor storage of vehicles on the site, limited use of the yard before 9 a.m., limited deliveries before 9 a.m., the lighting would be adjusted, if that's the proper word, to minimize any sort of glare. 8, we talked about the addition of both to the south of the driveway, but more appropriately to the north. The petitioner would work with staff regarding, if this would be approved, additional screening of the building to maintain A, the wildlife habitats that we've discussed, and B, just as importantly, the vistas and the views from the adjoining condominiums to the south. Let's see if I got everything. Did I miss anything? I think that's it. Did I miss something? Okay, so with that, we need a motion subject to all of those conditions of approval in our packet, as well as the ones we just added this evening, to recommend approval to change the zoning classification from COS open space to PIB public and institutional buildings.
And as a part of this motion also too, on page 5, we're required to make the specific findings under section 21.7, and those findings would be incorporated subject to Commissioner Heidner's change on number 3.
Right.
That this would be included as a part of the motion.
Right. Sorry, that's correct. Okay, so we need a second. All we do is vote on it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Heidner. Any discussion?
I will just make a comment. Obviously, I've expressed my concern about this. I again object to taking open conservation land and converting it to a maintenance facility, so that's just my only comment.
Okay.
I just want to comment that I really like the design of the building. I think it is very attractive. However, I'm not sure, like Commissioner Gregg, I don't like it when government pushes its way around. It does things that it wouldn't allow other people to do. And I think once something is zoned conservation and open space, it should remain that way. It's not just a holding category for future developments.
Anybody else? Jeff?
I agree with the comments about the building. I think it's a well-designed maintenance building. The site plan's well done. I'm just concerned with the location as well on the conservation area, and I'm just wondering if there's a better place within the village for this building.
Okay, I guess it's my turn to talk then. I agree that there is an issue whenever we seek to put public uses on any sort of public land. We saw this when years ago, the first commission meeting I ever had when the police department original building was put there. We saw that when former village manager Lashin brought to us the Public Works building at Butterfield, and we've seen it when people have brought schools or tried to change schools. I recognize that whenever something is put in, it has an impact on someone, and that's why my view has always been is that if we are going to do things for the betterment of all, we have to make sure that it doesn't, if you will, impact on a few disproportionately. And that's why my questions today were not so much designed, though I think we did talk about where else it could go, but if it did go here and the village board approved it, how is the best way to meet all of our constituencies and all of the needs of everyone in the village, including those that are near as well as far. I will tell you, I live in the village, but I don't live anywhere near this. I live, probably a couple miles away in Grosse Pointe. But nonetheless, it impacts the village I live in and, the people that are residents of the same village. So I think it's a difficult balancing, and I think when we spoke this afternoon or this evening, the Park District realizes that the same constituents that spoke here are the same ones that are theirs as well. And it's an important balancing we need to do. Everyone's spoken enough about the building. I do agree that for what it is, it's a well put together, well designed, attractive building. It's really not the building, it's the issue, it's just the placement or the where that is really the discussion we have this evening. So with that, unless there are any more comments, I think it's appropriate that we have a roll call vote on the question of rezoning only.
Mr. Ballou, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner, Mr. Heidner,
No.
Mr. Mulcrone,
No.
Mr. Gorog,
No.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval of a special use permit to allow a public maintenance facility to be constructed along with the variations we've discussed and pursuant to the various particular conditions that we've talked about. In some respects, this is a...
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
How can we vote on something that we just said we don't approve putting it?
Well, that's a good point. What I was going to say is that in some respects, this is a kind of an academic for the board, that should the board grant the zoning classification, would it be appropriate then to have the special use?
Yep.
So it's kind of it's an if and only if.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Is
I
that
think
kind of-
you're giving them your full opinion.
Okay.
Right, okay. Okay, so any discussion with regard to the special use issue?
Yes.
Okay,
If you look at 18.3.2 and the image that's on the screen, I think is an excellent one for this point.
if I could find it.
It states the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the adjacent neighborhood. And I do feel that the building, actually that's 125 feet away and the one that's 190 feet away, I believe it will impact their value. And therefore, I don't believe it meets the special use criteria.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we need a vote with regard to special use. I'm sorry, we need a second. That would be a very good point. Okay, now we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, then we need a vote. And this is, remember, we're voting if the village board would approve the zoning classification, would we recommend approval of a special use in that zoning classification or rezoning classification?
And that would be subject to the conditions of approval in your packet
Right.
and the various, and the variations and everything.
And the
so.
additions we added tonight?
Yep.
Right, okay.
Mr. Baloo, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner, Mr. Heidner,
No.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Mr. Gorog,
No.
Chairman Morse.
Yes. Okay. Next is a motion to recommend a preliminary and final site and landscaping plan approvals, subject to all of the conditions that are in our packet, as well as the additional conditions of approval for the entire site that were discussed today. And I suppose because this is including landscape, it's especially the landscaping ones we spoke about.
Can we go back to the one we just voted on? I'm just curious, with a vote of 2-2, it's not approval, it's
Motion
not,
fails.
what legally, not legally, but
Motion fails,
what
right.
technically has
Right.
happened?
The motion failed.
We did not recommend.
So
fails.
it doesn't go with the
I don't think
motion.
we've ever had that happen in the 12 years I've been on this, so I didn't know. Okay,
Maybe
thanks.
not. Okay, so 3 is the motion to recommend preliminary and final site and landscaping plan approval, subject to the conditions, variations, and the conditions of approval for the entire site, including those added tonight, with especially underlining the landscaping ones. We need a second for that?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call on that one.
Mr. Baloo, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner, Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Mr. Gorog,
No.
Chairman Morse.
Yes. Okay. And lastly, we have a motion to recommend preliminary and final approval of the architectural elevations and signage plans. And this, once again, is assuming that the village board would grant everything we said before, subject to the conditions in our packet as well as ones added this evening. Okay. That didn't sound good. We need a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call.
Mr. Baloo, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Hesner, Mr. Heidner,
Yes.
Mr. Mulcrone,
Yes.
Mr. Gorog,
No.
Chairman Morse.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, with that, by way of explanation, and Mr. Kalmar can do it far better than I can, these are only recommendations with respect to what was put before us and our comments, which will go to the village board. The final decision-making lies with the corporate authorities, which is the board, when it sits as the board next, I don't know when it's coming back.
Well, right now, we were targeting the May 7th meeting, which is next Tuesday. For the residents that are here, keep an eye on our website, vernonhills.org, for the agenda. We'll have to look at that agenda and see if the item is on the committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have, I guess there's a meeting date, not I guess, I know, on May 15th, the Oaks of Vernon Hills.
Correct.
And we believe we have a quorum that day?
We're hoping.
Okay, and then we have approval of the minutes of January 30, 2013, which are in our packet. Okay, I thought I had found an error, but John explained to me that I did not, so I don't have any comments to it unless someone else does.
We got one right tonight, so.
All right,
I'll move to approve.
okay, we need a second on that?
I just had a,
Okay, and we can do that by acclamation, all in favor?
I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you
On
were
the date,
second.
was it really January 30th? Was our
I did
last
wrong.
meeting? I thought it
Was it not January 30th?
I don't have a book for that.
He's had a tough night.
You don't think it was?
He thought it was later.
I thought it was later, but I could be mistaken.
See if I can find a calendar, which is possible.
Time does fly.
It seems like a long time ago.
It is. Kind of.
Mm,
I don't have it written down, but that doesn't mean it didn't occur.
No, it was the 30th.
Was the 30th
It
a
was the
Wednesday?
30th.
Okay, so it was.
Sorry.
Okay. You want to second it then?
Second.
Okay. We can do that by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Okay. Okay, well, you're not really opposed, just abstaining. Okay, anything else we need to talk about? Or-
No, I think that's enough for tonight.
Okay, then we have a motion to adjourn. We need a second.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Okay, we're adjourned. Good night.
Thanks, sir.